Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Market Mastery. We're covering off Bitcoin, everything happening in the markets at the moment. We're also going to take a look at altcoins and potential setups for positioning for longer term cycle plays coming up. We're going to take a quick look at the stock market and gold as well. So BTC here at the moment, I think very obvious rising wedge through here. And even if you don't like pattern setups, I think this was an obvious SFP and shooting star reversal here at the top of after a strong downtrend move, and then this sort of chopping sideways retracement. It's never what you really want to see for continued upside movement, especially after, this big sideways sort of price action that we've had for a while. You tend to see that type of price action in a bearish type scenario. So yeah, over the weekend when we sort of got this big pin bar get put in here on the 4 hour and this shooting star type setup, I just sold some BTC and went into a short here, and that's played out really nicely. After you break the uptrend through here, it's hard to deny that this isn't a high put in here and then a lower high through here. I mean, you can argue that this is the same structure, right? So that's one high, lower high, and then you're putting in another lower high here. So in my opinion, this most likely is going to continue to sell off. Maybe gets caught up around this 9 level through here we're approaching at the moment, but I think most likely something through here. Now, the type of setup that I want to see through here would be similar to this one. You get oversold on the 4 hour, and then you end up getting a sweep of the range lows, and then some type of bullish divergence or something like that. So bullish divergence, sweep of the range lows with a nice pin bar, like something like that here, and then break out the top of that. You get your 1221 crossover, and you get back above the weekly pivots, and then, signaling momentum and pushing to the upside. And then you get a reclaim of this downtrend line through here. And then we're, off to the races again. And then the target for that will be up at around 38K. This level through here, I think, is probably the most likely next area of resistance if we do get back above that. So that's the main setup that I'm looking for here at the moment. Bit of a continuation follow on from what I was talking about with this potential accumulation range through here that I showed in last couple of videos. So this could just be another backup last point of supply through here. So I'm not sure if it's going to end up holding through this area here, if we come back down to hit 25K and then go again there. So if we do get this more shallow type correction and the bottom gets put in on the 4 hour, we get a nice 4 hour setup around 27K. Now, I think it's actually going to be more similar to this type of price action, right? More similar to something like this, right? We end up doing something like that. And then we end up breaking out and moving up, and that'll come around the 60-day area. And we'll get a nice sort of like range at the bottom here around this 27K area, which is basically on top of a 4 hour order block, this one through here, right? 4 hour order block just there, held price up here, and also here really nicely. Then the daily order block through here, which obviously, we had the nice reversal a week and a half ago, right? So range type reversal if we have the higher one, and potentially more of a V-shaped type reversal, if we get more of a daily oversold. So we're watching for the daily to come oversold. I think 4 hours is going to end up in the oversold range and get bullish divergence anyway. But we'll be looking also for the daily time frame to tag oversold. Now, in a bull run type environment, BTC rarely comes back to being oversold. Doesn't spend much time down there unless the market is, insanely bearish for a period. So like through here, after a huge dump off, it took quite some time to get, the next rally up, right? And apart from that, when the market was bullish, we hardly even saw it come back down to touch the oversold range. So if we do end up coming back down and retesting this 25K area, around the 60-day mark, which we are getting very close to at the moment. I think it'll be a really fast V-shaped reversal, right? So this is the level I'm watching for at the moment. We've got 2 daily order blocks through here, which I think price will respect and we're going to bounce off. So we're either going to get a range type setup through here, and I'll look for SFP, pin bar, bullish divergence through there, or more of a V-shaped type reversal, which would be similar to this type of price action through there, right? So we'll be looking for, something like this to end up playing out, right? And then that'll probably take us to a bottom, potentially around 65 days. And so I'm looking for, a really strong bottom on the daily that then rolls into a nice weekly pin bar. So I'd love to see maybe, this week or maybe next week, this week held up there for a little bit. And then next week we get a pin bar down and then recover. And so the weekly leaves a pin through here, a lot of trapped shorts. And then we see a really nice reversal the following week. And we push up after that. That's, I think that would be the perfect type setup that we want to see for a bullish play for the next 60-day cycle. And then we break out the top of this range, right? So end up doing something like this when you get the bump and run, and then it runs all the way up to that 38K level. I think that would be, my preferred type of setup to be trading through. So on the weekly, you would end up with a candle that ends up looking something like this, right? With a nice wick down here. And that ends up with trap shorts. And we push up to the upside, okay? So that's what I'm sort of looking for mainly at the moment, either a big V-shape reversal type setup here around the 60-day end of the cycle. And then I'm looking for a full 35, 40-day swing high after we put in that 60-day low, which takes us up around about 38K. That would make the most sense to me. And then potentially that is the top of this run. And we've got 3 pushes, 1, 2, and then 3. And then it just chops around for the rest of the year until we have the halving. And then we finally move into a much larger bull run type setup, right? And obviously a lot of that is going to coincide with what happens in the stock market, even though BTC is sort of flipped across to being more mirrored to gold. So we need to start watching gold at the moment, which unlike BTC and the stock market has actually been pushing quite aggressively. And it looks like it's about to start ranging for a little bit longer. So it's been sort of in this chopping sideways range for about 52 days. So similar to stocks and BTC actually. But it has been pushing, making higher highs with bearish divergence, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the start of a longer build up and we end up getting something like this, okay? That's what I'm going to be watching for anyway on gold. Looks like the start of a consolidation period with the 3 highs. So you often get those the start of a bull flag type situation, and then the market takes a little while to reset. This has been a really big run from 1600 all the way up to 2000, right? It's been a 26% move, which is massive in pretty much half a year for gold. So just needs to, I think, consolidate sideways for a little bit and then have its crack at breaking out to a new all-time high. So let's see how that ends up playing out moving forward. One to keep our eye on. If gold does end up breaking to a new all-time high, I think that's probably going to be pretty bullish for Bitcoin, to be honest. So NASDAQ really need to be aware that this potentially is putting in up thrust after distribution. We don't want to see this pull back inside the range, then get rejected off the range highs and then break below the range low. That definitely opens up downside move back to pretty much 11,800, right? ES is the same, okay? We've been in this sideways range for a fair bit. You could say this was a sign of weakness, second sign of weakness, and easily these could both be up thrust after distribution. It's a tough one, to be honest. Reading the volume, not the most perfect volume structure for a reaccumulation, to be honest. Not huge volume at the bottom or coming out of the bottom. But decent, through here and through here. and the most volume coming through here, on that big dump candle. So I'm not seeing a strong argument for either way at the moment, to be honest. A lot of like volume increasing throughout this range here while we're at the top, potentially signaling that there's just some distribution happening up here. So need to be careful watching this doesn't end up rolling over here and then we get stuck underneath this level of support. So that's the main thing I'm watching at the moment on stocks this week, because this easily could be a sign of weakness, and we get one more break below that level. I don't think it's going to hold. I think it opens up, a pullback to this range low down here again. And that would have to coincide with some economic data, which, we have some important data coming out with inflation. So the key one to watch is core month over month and CPI. Okay. So core year over year, it's looking like it's starting to read pretty sticky at the moment. So we don't want to see this getting above 5.7 or something like that. That could end up leading to quite a big crash in the market. There's a few things to think about with that at the moment, because unemployment has actually come out lower than expected. It's dropped again, and the Federal Reserve actually wants to see unemployment start to pick up because we are pretty much at full employment. So it went up to 3.6 and then dropped back to 3.4, which could be an indication that we're actually going to see a little bit more sticky inflation. But inflation has been dropping, and one of the reasons for that is they changed the way that it's measured. But it would have been coming down anyway, but it's measured now only against 1 year, and we are measuring against really high measurements. And we did have a huge drop from February to March, right, of a whole percent. And we're measuring now against, above 8% inflation. So 8.3, 8.6, 9.1 in June. The next three readings could continue to see lower inflation prints. The main thing at the moment, though, is the core is being more sticky than the rest of the inflation, the CPI basket. And that is because rental is staying very high. So shelter is one of the main things that seems to be very sticky. So that's one thing that we need to see coming down. So it's going to be interesting to see the numbers that come out. That's going to be Wednesday, 10:30 p.m. because it's Tuesday morning, 8:30 a.m. for New York. And so the data for CPI that we want to see is we want to see it underneath 5. So a bounce in CPI, because it did have a huge crash from 6 to 5. A bounce in that could spook the market a little bit. And then, that ends up causing sell-offs. And then everybody will say this was a distribution pattern, okay? So that is one thing to keep our eye on. I wouldn't mind, if this actually was distribution, though, I wouldn't mind seeing it wick the upside and then finally getting a crash rollover. But let's see how it ends up playing out, okay? In terms of altcoins, just going to look at Pepe, because everybody's trading that at the moment. We got in super early and, it's been 20x pretty much. We got in even before it was on MEXC, because it came out on BingX super early, which is great that they list coins a lot earlier than most other exchanges. So we got to buy it really early. I sold a whole heap here, and then the Binance launch came out. So I didn't really get much in this area here, 120% higher pump, but it is what it is. You can't predict that Binance is going to decide to relist it. But I want to see this consolidation here hold. Right, and if this is going to get another leg up, you'd want to see something like that play out and you get a breakout to the upside, and then potentially it gets one more rally up into the sort of this area here, and then it rolls over again. Okay, if it breaks through this area of supply here, I'm probably going to dump the rest of it, because it's probably either going to come back to this 13,000 area or even lower, and then it just looks like your typical altcoin cycle, right? And it's going to be pretty ugly. It'll take ages to recover as well. So, I sold the whole way up. So not too concerned about how that plays out. Anyway, just the only bit I'm holding left is my moon bag. But if it breaks this level, I'm probably going to sell it. Can always buy back above here, or buy back in lower with the same amount and just let it run again. In terms of the rest of the altcoin market, though, having massive sell-offs at the moment. And so pretty concerning for alts, to be honest. But to be fair, it looks like they're just going through, and this is something I spoke about a lot. These were either going to continue and get rallies up, much higher, or they were just going to come all the way back down and continue to range through here until post halving. Is this what we saw with ADA and Ethereum in the last cycle? So, like Link, for example, it's still just stuck in this range. This is probably going to come back to range lows, right? And then it'll keep chopping sideways until something major happens. Back end of the year or post halving in 2024. Aave as well, like a lot of these, they look like they're heading back to the bottom of the range. So, if you are looking to accumulate some key altcoins for long-term cycle holds, then I think you want to be looking for the key levels that you want to be looking to buy in at, because we are having some pretty big sell-offs. Solana's actually held up really nicely through here, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting to see if that does come back to 16. I wouldn't be surprised if that ends up pulling back to 16 and you end up having some sort of a range like this for a bit longer. But once it gets above 26, it's probably the signal to go. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. The other main one I wanted to look at was Illuvium, because that has had a huge pullback. I know a lot of the guys want to be accumulating this one. So be looking for like springs of the range lows through here, guys. I think that is going to be the signal to be getting in on a lot of these altcoins. And if you are buying these, we have to be prepared to hold for the long term, because it could easily end up doing this and not even, get a push out until halfway through 2024. Okay. So if you are buying in, it's for longer term holds or pushes to the mid range and then getting out if you want to be shorter term holds. But that's a risky type play, because this easily can sweep the range low. And then, something happens in crypto or stock market and goes much, much deeper. Okay. But I think the key play for altcoins at the moment is for looking at where the range lows are and looking for retests of those range lows, or like key weekly pin bars into key weekly order blocks would be the other thing to look for. Okay. So it's pretty much the state of the altcoin market. Ethereum, I think, potentially is getting ready to set up a falling wedge. So that's one thing to keep our eyes on, because that would be pretty nice if it did. We'll have to wait to see how that plays out. I think on Ethereum as well, looks like it could also be setting up a falling wedge. And it looks like that's been setting up now for almost 240 days, right? So maybe one or two more hits each side of the channel through here, and then eventually a breakout. So I'll be watching for that from momentum shift from holding BTC to Ethereum, right? I'm not sure it's going to lead to a pump like this one, but we could at least get a nice rally, maybe something like what we had up here. Right, so that could end up leading to range highs, a 42% rally. So that would be a nice one to be looking, keeping our eyes on anyway, right? So I'll be looking for a daily bullish divergence at the end of this with nice daily pin bars, sweeping the lows, and then confirmation of, so a nice daily pin bar, something like that on a bullish divergence. And then, the breakout would be the confirmation to continue to hold that move to upside, okay? Hopefully that makes sense, guys. Thanks a lot for tuning in. We'll see you all in the next episode.